So I want to welcome everybody to this session. The Central Pacific Conference Palestine-Israel Network planned this with the hopes that we would have a whole bunch of people hear wonderful speakers from Palestine and Israel who are real peacemakers, who embody the peacemaking of the Prince of Peace. And this is a very special event with one of my very favorite people in Palestine, Daoud Nassar from Tent of Nations. And I say that because I see him as truly living his Christian faith. In the times that I have visited him, I've been so impressed by the way he is with the people around his farm. When I was there were 3 settlements, and now I hear that there are 5 settlements up on the hillside around Tent of Nations. And I just was speaking to him before we started here that I planted a little olive tree there with some rocks around it, hoping that it would live. And so hopefully it's among the many that they are planting, so many that they're planting now to take the place of the ones that were burned or bulldozed or, just horrible treatment of the farm. So as I think about today, I think about when Jesus was entering Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, and we're dealing with Lent, and that's the culmination of Lent. And the people around Jesus were telling him to get his disciples to be quiet. And he turned to them and said, if the disciples are quiet, these stones will shout. And I think of Daoud as a living stone, living the Christian faith right there on Tent of Nations in Beit Sahour, where it's Shepherd's Field, where the shepherds heard the news about the baby Jesus being born. Because he works at loving his neighbor as himself. He works at loving his enemies and praying for those who persecute him and his family in that place. And he is a blessed peacemaker. Blessed are the peacemakers, and I think of Daoud as one of those. Daoud, it is such a blessing to see you here today and to be with you when I've traveled there. And also, Beth Moore is with us, who's from Tent of Nations, and she is the treasurer. And I really want to thank both of you for being with us. The session is going to be recorded today, so if you really would rather not have your faces on the recording, which I hope you'll just leave them as they are. But anyway, if you don't want to be recorded, you can turn off your video. And the plan for today will be, we're just going to start with the meditation. Then we're going to show a film that cannot be recorded because it's not available that way yet. But we'll show a film about Tent of Nations. Then Daoud will share about his farm and his family and the issues that they have faced. I urge you to put your questions in the chat box during the time that he's speaking or afterwards. And then Beth Moore will share about Friends of Tent of Nations North America and what money would go to if you decide to add to the trees on the farm or add to the registration issues that they are having. And then Stephen Denny will take a moment to tell us about the Betty McCollum bill. And then I will invite you to the next session and close us all with a prayer.
I invite everybody to just sit quietly for a minute and take 3 deep breaths. Well, exhale too. These are the lyrics from a song that he shared at our church on Sunday that I really loved, so I want to share it with you. The song is by Tracy Howe. Our world is in God's hands, which are our hands, which are God's hands, and justice will come when it is embodied in us. A prayer. Oh God, thank you for this gathering in your name. We offer our minds, our spirits, and our hands to your work. May justice be embodied in us. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Leslie. Beth Moore, would you please introduce yourself and then show us the film about Tent of Nations.
Mhm. Yes, thank you. Thanks to everyone for being present today, and particularly great thanks to Catherine and the UCC conference, the Central Pacific UCC conference, for organizing this event. It's always of great support and encouragement to us to hear from and to see the numbers of people from all around the world who are keeping Tent of Nations and the Nassar family in their hearts. So we want to begin this morning with a brief video. For those of you who haven't been there, it will allow you to get a picture of where Tent of Nations is located and the farm and some of the work going on there. It's about a 10-minute video, and then Daoud will expand more on that. So give me just a minute to share my screen, if you will, and we'll get started.
Daoud, is that your daughter that took the film? You need to unmute yourself.
Yes, my both daughters, Shadin and Nardine.
Lovely. Yeah. It's really well done. So I want to introduce Daoud in terms of his bio, which is very impressive. So I'm going to read this. Daoud Nassar, a Palestinian Christian farmer, is director of the Tent of Nations Project, an educational, environmentally conscious farm that seeks to build bridges between people and between people and the land. The farm has been in the family since 1916. It is located 6 kilometers from Bethlehem in the occupied West Bank. The 100-acre farm is surrounded on 3 sides by Israeli settlements and below by the Palestinian village of Nahalin. The family has been in the Israeli courts since 1991, seeking to maintain their claim to this land. Mr. Nassar has traveled to the United States twice each year since 2007 and spoken at 350 venues in the United States under the sponsorship of Friends of Tent of Nations North America. And Daoud shares the story of his family's commitment to living a life of nonviolent resistance, refusing to be enemies in the face of continuous obstacles that they and most Palestinians face in their search for a normal life. In June 2013, Daoud was invited to speak at the well-known Riverside Baptist Church in New York City, which is where other famous human rights leaders such as Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, Bishop Tutu have also preached. You're in good company, Daoud. In July 2018, Daoud was invited to the Carter Center in Atlanta to be a participant in the Human Rights Defenders Forum. In October 2018, Tent of Nations and the Nassar family received a Peace Award from the World Methodist Council. And that same year, Daoud was among 15 individuals to receive the Franco-German Prize for Human Rights and the Rule of Law. Daoud has a bachelor's degree in biblical studies from Bethlehem Bible College, a bachelor's degree in business from Bethlehem University, and a degree in tourism management from, I don't know how to say this perfectly, but Bielefeld University in Germany. He's married to Jahan Nassar, and they have 3 children, and Daoud speaks and understands Arabic, Hebrew, German, and English. I am impressed, Daoud, as I hope others are as well. So I turn it now to you, Daoud, to tell your story, anything you want to share with us about what you do and how you deal with all that's going on around you.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. Thank you, everybody, and thank you so much for taking the time to be on this meeting. I'm glad to be with you here from Bethlehem, where I'm close to the Church of Nativity, the place where Jesus was born. And it is, for me, it's special to be here, and especially as we are preparing ourselves for the resurrection, the time of suffering first, but I always say the tomb is not the end of the story. When you mentioned, Catherine, when you mentioned about the Palm Sunday, as you know, as Palestinians, we are not allowed to go to Jerusalem. And one day I wanted to take my children on Palm Sunday to walk from the Mount of Olives into the Old City. And we got a permit on that day to go to Jerusalem. So I was preparing, this was a couple of years ago, my children were young, and I was preparing my children about Jerusalem, where are we going? And as we went to the checkpoint, the soldier said at that time, well, the computer is not functioning today, and no one can cross, come back tomorrow. But we had a permit for one day, and we wanted to go to Jerusalem on that special day, but it didn't work. What I wanted to say here, because of the restrictions, many Palestinians could not cross to their holy places. I just came back from a meeting with a German group who were traveling around the country. So at the end, they will know the country much more as we do, who are living here since many, many years, because of the restrictions that are put on us in terms of moving from one place to another. But I'm glad to talk about the Tent of Nations. As you maybe watched in the video, the land is located in the center of now 5 Israeli settlements, which is a strategic place to build a new one. The history of the farm goes back to more than 100 years ago. So my grandfather was a farmer, and he wanted to create a new existence, a new hope, a new future for his children. And he decided, as I said in the video, to live in the cave, and they lived the biblical life. So my grandfather was a spiritual man. So they started their day by sunrise, and they ended their day by sunset, sitting around the fire, singing some songs, and they end the evening with a prayer. So this is how my father and uncle grew up. And we, the third generation, we grew up with the same tradition. My father was a preacher, and he continued with the same tradition of his father until he passed away. Now, since the land was bought, although my grandfather thought he wanted to give his children a better future, but the struggle started early 20s, when the country was under the British mandate, and the new immigrants and so on, and all the problems that had happened, political problems, which started affecting the farm in 1936, with uprooting more than 25,000 grape trees. So it was a big catastrophe for my father and uncle, who lost everything in that year. And then they started to rebuild stuff from below zero. But they were committed, because for us, it's like the biblical tradition, a gift that you received, you should keep and work on it, like continue connected with it. It's not like a gift that you give it up. So with their commitment, they continued, they rebuilt the farm, and they planted new trees. And of course, the situation was getting more difficult with 1948, and then 1967, and then in the 70s with the settlements. Then my father died in 1976, and my uncle died in 1987. And then in 1991, we faced a new challenge, which is the confiscation, or the willing of the Israelis to confiscate the farm and build the settlement. So for about 32 years, we are struggling to keep this farm. They tried to take it in a legal way by putting us under pressure, saying that your documents are not for this specific area, getting eyewitnesses, but we did not give up. We continued the struggle. Then they tried with the physical pressure by sending the settlers to attack, to cut our trees, to build roads, but we did not give up. Then they tried to offer us a lot of money for the land, but what we inherited, we cannot sell. You know, that we are connected with the land. As my sister said in the film, our land is like our mother. And for now, we are being squeezed in the center of the settlements. They built a school, a religious school in our area. The wall that is being built southwest of Bethlehem, when it's finished, will disconnect us from and to Bethlehem. So all of that would make it more difficult. And the new challenges that we had in the last 2 years by attacks from local people, with burning over 1,000 trees and putting more pressure on us. And the idea is, of course, for us to push us to leave and to, this will serve in taking the land for the settlements. But with all the difficulties that we've been facing, we said this is not it's not for us that we want to react in a negative way, because reacting in a negative way would destroy ourselves. We won't accept this unjust situation as it is, and we don't want to sit down and cry and become as a victim. And at the same time, we are not giving up with all this pressure that is put on us. We are not giving up and leaving. We created the fourth way, which is, I want to say here, this is the Jesus way. By overcoming the evil with good and hatred with love and darkness with light. He overcome Jesus, the darkness was overcome by Jesus through the resurrection. As I said before, the tomb was not the end of the story, the dark tomb. But on the third day, the light came out of this grave and of this tomb. And then we celebrated the resurrection. And as well as still the remaining Christians that we are in the Holy Land, I always say, we are the people of the resurrection. The difficulties, the challenges that are facing us won't stop us from continuing the journey, continuing our mission. And Jesus said also, blessed who are the peacemakers. And we are like glad to be part of that. Although like making peace is not that easy here, or it's very difficult, but we are called to be change makers and to change hearts. And this is the mission that we took on us with this farm, with this family story. And that's why we created there a nonviolent way of resistance based on our faith. And our slogan is, we refuse to be an enemy, which is easy said and difficult to practice. But we should keep always in our minds and in front of our eyes the four principles that I spoke about in the video, which is the refusing to be a victim, refusing to hate, acting based on faith, and believing in justice. With those four principles, we keep ourselves motivated, and we continue the journey. So with all the difficulties and the challenges, we continued and we started developing the farm and bringing people to the farm. We want our story, our story for, or struggle for justice, to be a blessing for other people. And by sharing this story, we are with you and with other people, we are keeping ourselves motivated, we are strengthening ourselves, but we are trying to open people's eyes, and so that the story, our struggle will become a blessing for other people. we do those activities in order to open a new perspective for people, a perspective that based on acting positively and without giving up. I mean, it's not that easy to act positively in the middle of a dark situation and challenging situation, but we need, I always say to myself, I have to stay on the track. Although the situation around me is very difficult, very complicated, but we need to keep looking forward, exactly like the cross, which was not the end of the story. It was the path into a new situation. And this is how we see our work at the Tent of Nations. So I'm very hopeful, but of course I am realistic, like living in a difficult situation, but we should continue to have a vision for the future, but walk, as I said in the video, walk in small steps with faith, with love and hope. This is what encourages us to continue, but this also would encourage other people to do the same.
So we have time for questions. Thank you, Daoud.
Welcome.
So I've just put in the site, the corrected site. I typed it wrong the first time around. The Friends of Tent of Nations North America.org. So hopefully people will go to that site and learn more about Tent of Nations as well, and also be able to donate. What the first question that I had in the chat box was about the rainfall. Do you have any idea what the annual rainfall is there for you? I know you collect it in cisterns, which is,
Yes.
you're not allowed to dig a well.
No, we are not allowed to dig a well, and also the systems are having demolition orders, so we are not allowed even to collect rainwater. So we are living in a dry climate.
Right.
Usually we have not that much rain. The rainfall season is between March, let us say between December, late November, December until March. About the rainfall, we have about like 400 milliliter of water. I don't know in inches, but this is not that much. And that's why we are trying to collect the rainwater that we have in cisterns, and we try to use this collected water to irrigate the new planted trees. Of course, we are not planting trees that need a lot of water.
Yeah.
So we are planting trees like olives, grapes, almonds, and we need to water them the first 1 or 2 years by hand, twice a week.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, when I'm talking about destroying of trees, this is very painful, because like you watch the tree growing, we watch the trees growing like our own children, and we started like a relationship with the tree while walking to the tree, giving it water, digging around it. So we sometimes like talk to the trees, and that's why it's like really painful when we experience a damage or a fire that destroy or destruction or bulldozers or cutting trees. It is very emotionally is also painful for us too.
Okay. If people were to give money, what is the thing that you needed for the most? More trees or funding for the registration fees, lawyer fees?
Well, you know, like thank you. Well, there are many other also options to help. Of course, like we, you know, this kind of meeting is very important in order to tell our story, and we are asking you, as you heard the story, also to continue telling it. We invite people to visit the farm after 2 years of no international presence.
Yeah.
We started to have groups. I mean, we hosted this year about 10 groups, this month, about 10 groups, and more are coming in the next months, because the international presence is important and is a protection. And then also the presence of volunteers are also important. People could also support the project financially by sponsoring trees or other things that are needed for the Tent of Nations. But I always say, you know, what is important for the Tent of Nations is a help to become self-sufficient, and not a help that will make us more depending on it. It should bring us into self-sufficiency and to sustain the farm. And that's why we are working hard on investing through the help of our friends that are supporting the project financially, is to work on projects that will help the farm sustain itself by itself. But thank you for your support and solidarity.
So there was a question before this, if I can get back to it. Did you used to have more water on the farm? Was there access to water that has been cut off in some way?
No, we had no running water from the beginning, because the land is located outside the city, and people were not used to live on the farms. So this was exceptional by my grandfather to live on the farm and to be like isolated from the city and from you know, like let us say easier life in the villages. But my father and uncle started like in the biblical time. They dug 2 cisterns that we renovated, and with the time we, you know, continued to build more. I mean, like to collect more rainwater, and until now, since the beginning, we are depending on rainwater.
Okay, thank you, Daoud. What do you do in the way of spiritual practices to allow you to remain free to love rather than fear or hate?
Well, it is difficult and challenging.
Yeah.
We are all humans, and the way sometimes we love, sometimes we feel the way we you know, we are angry, frustrated, and we might hate. This is normal, I feel, but at the end, it is what we are trying to do is that to practice how to shift this anger and how to transform this negative energy and this hatred to become, and you know, to come out from us in a constructive way. Yeah, this is challenging, but we are working hard on that, you know. So this is what keeps us motivated. It's not just like we say, well, it's easy to react differently. No, it's not that easy to react differently.
Right.
It's not that easy sometimes to accept like turning the other cheek. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, and many people, they think that turning the other cheek and accepting what you know, what the other is doing and how bad is that a weakness. No, it is a strength. And this is how we see it. It's like when we act differently, we are forcing the other to see us differently. Yeah? We are making the other feel weak. Yeah. And this is how we are practicing it, despite all of the challenges, you know.
I hear you. Thank you for that. Were you able to keep up with the harvest without visitors coming, the international visitors?
Well, in the we lost, as I said, like many trees through the attacks in the last 2 years. A lot of trees. We managed to do like small harvesting, you know, family members. But now we are looking more for volunteers. I mean, we started to have volunteers Now we have a volunteer with us from Italy, and late this month we have some volunteers coming from the Netherlands, and then from Belgium, and then from France, from Germany. So we started to have more volunteers, and this is helpful for us because of the presence, because of the help to do the work, but also like the mission of the Tent of Nations is also to give something back, not just like to receive things. No, we need the people to be there to experience the farm, the Tent of Nations, and to use the time to motivate them, to empower them. There are many challenges that are happening in the world right now. Wars, difficulties, wherever you open the news and you hear only bad news coming from different places. So we need many workers, we need many people to help to change their situations there, to help in making life much better for the new generation. And that's why we use this time of the volunteers being with us to try to motivate them, to strengthen them, to go back home and become maybe change their reality, or become peacemakers, change makers in their own communities.
Daoud, where do the volunteers live?
They live on the farm.
They live
Some
on the
of
farm.
them, yes, we have shelters for volunteers, short-term volunteers. We have caves for long-term volunteers. Yeah, and we have also tents for short-term volunteers too.
Okay. What's the COVID situation there? Were you able to get vaccinated to the full extent with a booster?
Well, yeah, now the situation with the virus is much better. We hear some cases here and there, but not that much. Yeah, we got the vaccination, and yeah, hopefully things will get back to normal. But what disturbs us right now is actually the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, it's terrible. How do you compare that to what's going on with bombing in Gaza? Do you see that as you see a relationship there?
Well, like I always say, we need the international community to stand for justice,
Yes.
and to stand with the oppressed, and to achieve like peace and justice, and then not to treat people differently. This is what we are always praying for and hoping for.
Do you want to say anything about the recent attack on you and your brother?
Yeah, well, we are struggling with the Israeli authorities since more than 32 years, and we are almost like at the end of the struggle, and we managed to keep this farm all those years without losing any part of it. We have a session coming up on the 2nd of May for the re-registration of the farm. To be recognized as a private property from the Israeli authorities, since it's located on what is so-called Area C. But just recently, 2 years ago, as we some people from the village, from the nearby village, started to claim that part of our land, a big part of our land, belongs to them. How come after existing there for more than 100 years, we never had this problem before?
Wow.
And why now? Why not from the beginning, when we started the legal battle in 1991 with the Israeli authorities? So the timing of those attacks are questionable. So I thought that this is something that can be solved in the local court. This was my hope. But then those people started to attack the farm, to cut trees, to damage, to destroy the area for the volunteers. And just recently, a month ago, more than a month ago, they also attacked us. They sent 15 masked men, and they attacked us, me and my brother, physically. We spent some days in the hospital, but we are now recovering. Of course, it's very painful. Very painful. I'm not talking about the physical pain, but it is about the emotional pain, because it is much more difficult since it's coming from our own people.
Yes. Deep breath. Thank you for sharing that. Let's see. Do people cut off from you because of your peace activism?
No, nobody cut off from us. No, but the recent attacks has nothing to do with what we are doing. It's about like making it more difficult for us to exist on the farm. You know, they want to take the land. That was the reason, but we are glad that we are hosting people and volunteers, and more people are starting to come back to the farm after the corona. And this is for us a very motivating part, since, you know, we believe this is the mission of the farm, to deliver a positive and a peaceful message.
Do you think your message is getting to the leadership in Israel and Palestine?
Well, we are trying. I mean, like it is coming. I think with the recent attacks, there was a big press conference on the farm with some politicians and leaders from the Bethlehem area, through the visits of the international guests and volunteers who went back to their own countries, and they started contacting their Congress, their officials, the parliament members, and they started to inform about the farm. And that's why we are now we created also like international political support for the Tent of Nations, through you and through the people who came and visited, who came
so smart to do that. So smart to do that, to have the international community care about you and what you're doing there. Somebody's asking again why the Palestinians attacked you, why them, but that's because they want you to give up the land and have it shared with them. They think they own part of it, right? Is there anything else to add to that?
Well, of course, there are many things could be behind that. We are still figuring out what the reason is, and we are trying to find the solution. So
they've not been arrested yet, right?
Well, until now, they arrested 2 and then they released them, and we're waiting for the rest. I mean, for all of them to be arrested and then to be
so I want to get off of that because I know that's hard on you. What would you say is your message to the faith community concerning oppression in the so-called Holy Land? Some call it the unholy land.
Well, I always say the Holy Land is not consisting of just dead stones. It's not just like places for tourists to come and take pictures and say, well, this is the Holy Land. Of course, it has a spiritual meaning. I mean, it's very important for people to come and to experience the Holy Land, but we need the people to to walk where Jesus walked, not just like to pass by with a bus, and also to experience what Jesus experienced at that time, living living with the people, listening to their stories and trying to empower them living under occupation. So that's why we are always asking internationals when they come to visit, we need you also to be close to the people, to take with you back their stories, and to spread out their message. So when we think about it that way, so the Holy Land will have a different meaning to us. Of course, we hope, I mean, the struggle continues here. Peace is a bit far right now, but I always believe, you know, again, you know, we have a mission, you know, to help ourselves and try to help other people to find their inner peace, you know, because this is what is all about.
It is.
When we find ourselves, like when we have peace in our hearts, yeah, in the middle of a difficult situation, this won't, let us say, won't destroy us, because from within we have the energy, we have the power from within, you know. And this is what we are hoping for anyone that is coming to visit the Holy Land, not just like, of course, to see the places, to learn about the history, the struggle, the political situation, but also to feel this strength from within.
This is why I call you a living stone. You're one of the living stones, that people who really follow Christ in a very difficult situation. So I have two more questions, and then we're going to turn to Beth. Do you have any liaisons with any of those working for peace in Hebron who are also under attack? Do you have any connections with the people there?
Which people?
Hebron, people in Hebron.
Yeah, of course, you know, like we know, I mean, I don't know, like, did you mean like specific people or just in general?
People working, let's see, do you have any liaisons with any of those working for peace in Hebron who are also under attack?
Yeah, I mean, like there are, for example, the Accompany program, like the EAPPI, they are working in Hebron. They are accompanying children to their schools, and they have to pass like a street where the settlers there, and sometimes they attack the children. Yeah, I mean, like it's a tough situation there, and you know, like sometimes it's hard for them to be in that situation on daily basis. So today we hosted one of them who was working in Hebron. He came to the farm, you know, he has one day off in the week, and he came to the farm, let us say, to breathe, you know, to be in a different situation and to work the land. So he was like planting almond trees with us today. And this is also the therapy. So what we observe, what we see, and maybe continue to be burden on us, maybe it comes out a burden on our heart. It maybe comes out through working the land, you know, through being there, through enjoying the nature, you know. So when we see that this place is bringing the inner peace, I feel myself, you know, we are on the right track, and this is our mission.
So this next question, I think, fits what you're just telling us. In 100 years of living so close to the land, what is something your family has learned that you think would enrich others' knowledge?
Well, I feel the connection with the ground, you know, like to be close to the ground. You know, sometimes, and especially now with the new generation that is growing up in the urban areas, you know, like without land, without learning about the environment, without knowing even where the fruits come from, you know, where the food is coming from. It's really hard. You know, we are starting to experience that even with our own children during the summer camp. When we have children coming from the Bethlehem area, they don't know anything about the land, even the trees, the plants. I feel sad for the children to grow up in a situation where they don't know anything about the connection with this planet. You know, they think the more I consume, the better. You know, the better I will be. You know, the more famous I will be. I need the new phone. I need the new TV. You know, all of that at the end I feel like will leave us empty from inside. So life is much more than that, and the connection with the ground is teaching us on daily basis, not just like to live in our dreams, or like to think like in a I mean, like in a big way. No, you have to be connected with the land. You have to be connected with the ground. And that's why I always say, when Jesus came with his ministry, he didn't, with all respect to all people, but he did not contact the people, the religious people, like the people of the law and all of that. He was living with the needed people on the ground, and this is
On the ground.
very, very, very important,
Wonderful. So Daoud, if it's all right with you, we're going to turn to Beth and ask her to talk a bit about Friends of Tent of Nations North America. All right.
Thank you.
So thank you so much.
Thank you, Catherine.
Beth?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Catherine. So a major part of Daoud's message has been that people encourage him through their love and support, but we are also called to return and be peacemakers in our own communities. He's talked about that in some situations as contributing our own mosaic peace. And so that's the way that Friends of Tent of Nations was founded, is 3 individuals, a Quaker, a Presbyterian, and a Jew, went to visit Tent of Nations and returned and said, this is something, this is someone, this is a work that we want to support, and founded Friends of Tent of Nations North America in 2007 as an all-volunteer organization. I came on board or joined along in 2014 and serve on the steering committee. We have a small steering committee. Catherine has put the website for Friends of Tent of Nations in the chat box, and just by Googling Friends of Tent of Nations North America, it'll come up and you can find us. Also should mention that Tent of Nations itself has a website, and you can also Google that. And if you're interested in volunteering, which is one of the major needs right now, right on the Tent of Nations website, there's a tab for volunteering, and you can go there and find the application and more details and so forth. And so the work of Friends of Tent of Nations then has been to support the work of Tent of Nations, and we do that in a variety of ways. For a number of years, Catherine mentioned it in the bio, that Daoud has come to the US 2 times a year to speak. Of course, we've not been able to do that the last 2 years, so we've been organizing gatherings like this with the help of you. Someone reaching out and saying, can Daoud be part of an adult education session or this kind of a Lenten presentation? And so we've been able to continue to tell the story and share the story, and that is so important to us and to Daoud. So the speaking tours and we've already talked briefly about travel. We don't organize our own trips, but there are lots of great groups out there that are. Eyewitness Palestine is one I think of particularly, Tree of Life, that make a point of allowing people to hear the stories of people living there now, in addition to visiting the historic sites that are so important to many faiths. And we have been working closely with Daoud over the last several months with what we call our emergency response plan, and working with individuals, again, like yourselves, to assist you in contacting your congressional representatives about the re-registration of the land. And we have focused quite closely with particular representatives whom we know or have learned to know through you, that they are open to hearing another narrative, another story. And so if you want to be engaged in any of these, you're welcome to be in touch with me. I'll put my email in the chat, or on the Friends of Tent of Nations website, there is a way that you can do info@fotana.org and send a message there, and it will be read and responded to. So we thank you very much. There's been a mention about financial support. If that's a way that you want to support the work of the Tent of Nations, you can also find a way to do that at Friends of Tent of Nations North America, either via PayPal or by sending us a check. So we thank you for being with us and today and for bearing witness to this story of hope and light in the midst of a difficult situation. And we encourage you, as you encourage us, to continue to find your mosaic piece to add to the creation of peace and justice in our world.
Thank you, Beth. At this point, I forgot to tell the team earlier on that Stephen Denny is going to share a very brief piece about a bill that we can get our congressmen, senators, and representatives to sign on to. Stephen?
Hi there. I've just put in the chat a very, very long link to encourage your member of the House of Representatives to co-sponsor Representative Betty McCollum's House Bill, H.R. 2590, titled Defending the Human Rights of Palestinian Children and Families Living Under Israeli Military Occupation Act. Please click the link in the chat. It'll take you about a moment, really less than a minute, to fill it out. It's done by American Friends Service Committee. That's all.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay. So I just want to be sure to invite you to next week's session, which is go and see, let's see, come and see, go and tell. And it is people sharing their experience of going to the Holy Land and walking in the footsteps of Jesus, and also speaking with many pilgrims there and people there who are the living stones. And there will be some focus on Mar Elias Educational Institution, founded by Archbishop Elias Shakur, and one of our members here who wanted to know more about the area and the struggle. There's a book called Blood Brothers, and there's another one called We Belong to the Land by Elias Shakur. Those are wonderful books to start. Okay, so I want to thank Daoud and Beth for their peace witness, and Tyler for his tech work, and for everybody for coming. We have one more question. What does the financial support go to? I assume a 30-year legal battle is expensive. I think we ought to answer that question before we close. Daoud, can you answer that, or Beth?
Yeah, I'd be glad to respond. Daoud has mentioned all the kinds of ways in which they have resisted and witnessed for peace, in terms of solar energy, the cisterns, the planting of trees, the renovation of caves where people can stay. So contributions are first directed to those kinds of projects. I think one of the things to be said too is the tremendous amount of international support and from around the world. And so people from around the world have given their support of their prayers and their time and their treasure to continue to see this work continue.
Somebody's asking if we can forward this video to others. Yes. What I'm going to do is send out a link. Hopefully Tyler will help me get a YouTube piece that I'll send it out to everybody who signed up, and then you can forward that to others. It will not include the film that Daoud showed, Beth showed at the beginning about the farm. We're not allowed to do that, but everything else you can send. Okay, so I want to particularly thank Daoud for being with us and taking time to do that. And it's so wonderful to see you. You are always in my heart as I think of Palestine. It makes me choke up.
Thank you so
And
much.
Beth, I so appreciate the work that you do as real shining lights over there. Amazing. And I want to thank Tyler for our tech work and everybody for coming, and particularly thank Mary's House and Ainsworth UCC and Tree of Life Educational Fund who helped to sponsor this with financial help. And I'd like to close us with a prayer. So deep breath. And let us pray. May Jesus stand beside Daoud and his family as he continues his peace work in Palestine. Watch over them and keep them safe. Give them courage to continue with peaceful resistance. May they remain a beacon of Christ's light to those who visit them and support them from around the world. May God bless you with discomfort at easy answers, half truths, and superficial relationships so that you may live deep within your heart. May God bless you with anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people so that you may work for justice, freedom, and peace. May God bless you with tears to shed for those who suffer pain, rejection, hunger, and war, so that you may reach out your hand to comfort them and to turn their pain to joy. And may God bless you with enough foolishness to believe that you can make a difference in the world so that you can do what others claim cannot be done, to bring justice and kindness to all our children and the poor. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all for being here, and I hope to see you next week.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
God bless, Daoud.
God bless you too. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Many greetings.
Thank you.